I came home to find my brother in my bed with the woman I was going to marry. And then my family told me I was the one who needed to heal. That sentence still sounds unreal when I say it out loud. Like something you'd read on a screen and think, no, that can't be right. Someone's exaggerating. I promise you, I am not exaggerating. Not even a little. My name is Marcus. I live in Houston, Texas. I'm a structural engineer. I build things for a living, bridges, overpasses, foundations designed to hold weight for 100 years. I know how to read the load-bearing capacity of a structure. What I didn't know how to read, apparently, was my own family. Let me take you back to a Tuesday afternoon in October, because that's where everything changed. I worked for a civil engineering firm out in the energy corridor, the stretch of office parks and industrial campuses running along I-10 west of downtown. Long days, steel-toed boots, blueprints, site inspections. I love the work. There's something deeply satisfying about putting on a hard hat and walking out onto a structure you helped design, knowing your calculations are the reason it's still standing. At 30 years old, I had a good life. A solid apartment in Montrose, a truck I'd paid off myself, money and savings. I thought I had it figured out. I was engaged to a woman named Serena. We'd been together 4 years, engaged for 10 months. She was a cardiovascular nurse at a hospital in the Texas Medical Center, one of the largest medical complexes in the world. Smart, driven, kind, or so I believed. We'd met at my older cousin's birthday party. By the end of that night, I'd asked if I could walk her to her car. By the end of that month, I knew I was in trouble in the best way possible. I proposed at the reservoir in Herman Park, where we'd had our first real date. She said yes before I finished the sentence. My family loved her. My mom had already bookmarked venues. My younger brother, Deshaun, was 27, 3 years behind me, worked as a bartender at a trendy spot on Washington Avenue. Funny, charming, easy in rooms in a way I never was. He used to joke that Serena was too good for me the way brothers do, right? The way that's supposed to be harmless. I filed it under the usual nonsense. I should have held on to it. So, that Tuesday, we'd wrapped a site inspection ahead of schedule, and my project lead sent us home at 2 p.m. I was in a good mood. I figured I'd stop at Serena's favorite Vietnamese place on Westheimer. Grab pho. Surprise her. She had Tuesdays off. I parked in my lot, saw her car where it always was, grabbed the food, went upstairs, door was unlocked. Normal, she had a key. I walked in, set the takeout on the counter, heard something from down the hall. My bedroom. My first thought was that she'd fallen asleep with the TV on. The sound was wrong for that. I pushed the door open. There was Deshaun, in my bed, with my fiancée. I stood there, completely still. Maybe 5 seconds, maybe 5 years. I genuinely could not tell you. They scrambled apart like two people caught in a building fire. Serena grabbed the sheet. Deshaun was already reaching for his jeans on the floor, saying something I couldn't process because there was a sound in my ears like blood rushing through concrete. Get out. Both of you. Right now. My voice didn't break, it didn't rise. It came out flat and cold the way a building goes quiet just before it collapses. Deshaun said, "Man, listen, just let me. You have 10 minutes. After that, I call the police." Serena tried. She actually reached for my arm. "Please, Marcus, just let me explain." I stepped back. Not aggressively, just back. The way you step back from something you've realized is burning. Don't. Just go. They were out in 8 minutes. Deshaun kept trying to speak. I crossed my arms and stared at the wall until the front door clicked shut. Then I sat down on my couch. Didn't cry. Didn't put anything through the drywall. Just sat there with that cave-in feeling in my chest. The kind of quiet that comes after a structural failure after the noise stops and you realize the building isn't coming back. Honestly, if that were me, I don't know how I would have stayed that controlled. I think most people picture themselves screaming in that moment, throwing things. But there's a kind of shock that goes so deep it bypasses all of that. He wasn't just a man in his bed. He was Deshaun, his own brother, and that's a different kind of wound entirely. An hour later, I texted Serena. "We're done. The engagement is over. Don't reach out again." Then I called Deshaun. He picked up immediately. Started with, "I'm so sorry, I don't know how it," I said 4 words. "You're dead to me." Then I hung up. I blocked them both everywhere, phone, email, every platform. I took the ring she'd left on my nightstand and shoved it in a junk drawer. Then I called my parents. My dad picked up. I told them what happened, calm and factual, like I was reading a site report. My dad's voice went granite hard. "That boy has lost his mind. He'll hear from me tonight." My mom was crying. "Oh, baby." You come here if you need to. We're here. I called my sister Camille next. She was a night shift nurse over at Ben Taub, but she was awake. She was at my door in 40 minutes with wings from a place on Alameda and a six-pack of Shiner. She didn't try to explain it. Didn't ask me to consider Deshawn's feelings. She just sat there with me until midnight, and that was everything. For 2 weeks, I believed I had my family behind me. My dad apparently lit into Deshawn in a phone call that Camille said she could hear from the next room. My mom texted me every day. We love you. Take your time. We're here. I let myself exhale. I thought, this is survivable. I have people. Then one Saturday, I drove to my parents' house in Missouri City to return some equipment my dad had lent me for a side project. I was cutting across the side yard toward the garage when I heard my mom's voice through the kitchen window screen. She was on the phone, and she was crying. Deshawn, baby, I know you're hurting too. You're still my son. We're going to work through this as a family. I stopped walking, stood there in the side yard in the Houston heat, holding a power drill, listening to my mother comfort the man who had just dismantled my life. She didn't know I was there. I set the equipment on the driveway, got back in my truck, drove home, didn't say a word to anyone about what I'd heard. But I understood something then that I hadn't understood before. This wasn't going to go the way I thought. If you have ever stood outside a window and heard the people who love you minimizing your pain not because they're cruel, but because their love isn't selective enough to mean anything, you know the specific quality of that silence. It's not anger at first. It's more like watching a floor give way slowly. One board, then another. The Sunday lunch invitations kept coming. Family tradition, always had been. I stopped responding. My mom called. Honey, we miss you. Please come. I asked the only question that mattered. Is Deshawn going to be there? Silence. Then, we're still his parents. We can't just pretend he doesn't exist. I said, watch me. And I hung up. My dad tried the rational approach, called me from his office using his negotiation voice, the one he uses for contractors who go over budget. Son, what Deshawn did was wrong. Nobody's saying otherwise. But at some point you're going to have to move forward for this family's sake. I asked him why it was always on me to move forward. Why Deshawn didn't have to earn anything back. Because you're the older one, he said. You've always been the steady one. I need you to be the bigger man here. I actually laughed. Not bitterly. Just genuinely couldn't help it. Right, I said. Got it. Here's what I want to say about that. The be the bigger man request, I've thought about it 1,000 times since. My dad wasn't being cruel. He genuinely believed he was asking for something noble. He'd built a family over 30-some years through exactly this kind of managed compromise, and in his mind, he was asking me to do what had always kept things together. What he couldn't see, what neither of them could see, was that keeping things together now required using my dignity as the mortar, and I was done being mortar. 2 months after it happened, Camille called me at 11 at night. I have to tell you something, and you're going to hate it. My stomach dropped before she finished the sentence. Deshawn and Serena are together. Officially, Mom and Dad know. They were at Sunday dinner. I was quiet long enough that she said my name twice. How long? I asked. A few weeks. I just found out tonight. I thanked her. I hung up. I stood in my apartment kitchen in the dark for a long time, running through what it meant that everyone had known, everyone had said nothing, and everyone had apparently decided that my not knowing was an act of kindness. I drove to my parents' house the next day unannounced. They were on the back patio with coffee. No greeting, just, you're letting them be together. My mom stood up. Sweetheart, they're adults. We can't control, but you can control whether they're welcome in this house. My dad set down his mug. We're trying to hold this family together. I looked at him. You already chose. You just chose him. I left before my mom could respond. Thanksgiving. Camille begged me to come. Said she barely saw me. Said I didn't have to stay long. I went. I walked into my parents' house at 4 in the afternoon. Turkey smell, football on the TV in the den, aunts and uncles in the kitchen. Normal. Familiar. I walked into the dining room. Deshawn was at the table. Serena was next to him, holding his hand. Not a single person had mentioned they'd be there. Every face turned toward me. My mom's face was pure hope, like she'd orchestrated a reunion and was waiting for the miracle. I didn't speak. I turned around, got my coat off the hook by the door, and walked out. Behind me, I heard my mom call my name. Nobody followed me to my truck. December came. I told my family I had a project deadline on Christmas Eve, which was a lie. Christmas morning, Camille texted, "Please come tonight. Just a few hours. Do it for me." I stared at that text for a long time. She'd been the only one who hadn't made a single excuse for Deshawn. the only one who seemed to understand the actual weight of what happened. So I went. I should have trusted my gut. I pulled up to my parents' house at 7. Every window was lit. Cars in the driveway, my parents, Camille's, my aunt and uncle's, and 2 I didn't recognize. One of them I had a bad feeling about immediately. I almost reversed out of the driveway right there. Instead, I went inside. My mom spotted me first. Her face broke open with relief. "Oh, baby, I'm so glad you came." She hugged me. I barely moved. Then I looked past her into the living room. Deshawn. On the couch. Serena beside him. My dad standing near the fireplace. Camille on the love seat, not looking at me. My mom stepped back and took my face in both hands, tears running. "This is what Christmas is about," she said. "Family. Forgiveness. Being here together." Something in me went very still. Perfectly. Crystalline still. "You ambushed me." My voice came out quiet. "Sweetheart, no. We just thought if everyone was in the same..." "You ambushed me." Same volume, same tone. My dad stepped forward. "Son, we can't keep doing this. We're a family. It's time to move forward." I looked around the room. At Deshawn, who was studying the floor. At Serena, who looked like she wanted to dissolve into the furniture. At my aunt and uncle, who had the grace to look uncomfortable. At Camille, who was visibly fighting tears. At my parents, who looked at me with so much genuine love and so little genuine understanding. And I felt something close. Not like a door slamming, like a door sealing. Pressurized. Final. "You're right," I said. "It is time to move forward." I picked up my coat. My mom grabbed my arm. "Please don't do this to us." I looked at her, really looked at her, this woman I loved, who loved me, who genuinely could not see what she'd done. "I'm not doing anything to you," I said. "You did this." I pulled free, gently, and walked out into the December night. That drive home was the quietest I've ever been inside my own head. By the time I parked, I'd already made the decision. I went home, made coffee, and built a list. My apartment lease was month to month. My firm had offices in 4 cities. My friends were mostly work people who'd understand a transfer. By New Year's, I'd applied for a position in Atlanta. By February, I was packing. By March, I was gone. I blocked every number, changed my own, deleted accounts, vanished. There is something people don't tell you about starting over. The silence is brutal at first. You go from a life with context, people who knew you in childhood, who know your references, who call on your birthday without being reminded, to a city where nobody knows your face. I'd come home to a quiet apartment, eat reheated food, fall asleep to the TV. For about 60 days, that was my entire life. But I want to tell you something. Quiet is different from empty. And I was learning to tell the difference. Then one morning in May, I was cooling down from a run at Piedmont Park when I saw a woman struggling with a folding table that refused to lock. She was setting up for some kind of community event, muttering under her breath at the thing like it had personally wronged her. I walked over. "Need a hand?" She looked up, blew hair out of her face. "Please, this table has decided today is the day it ends me. I got it locked in about 15 seconds. She laughed. "Show off." "Years of fieldwork," I said. Her name was Jade. She was a licensed counselor, ran groups at a youth development center on weekends. Brown eyes, natural hair, the kind of direct eye contact that makes you feel like someone actually sees you. We talked while I helped her set up. By the time her event started, I had her number. Our first date was dinner at a quiet Eritrean place in Decatur. She asked good questions. I asked good questions. Nobody performed anything. Our third date, I told her everything. The whole story. She listened without interrupting, and let me tell you, as someone who'd spent months either replaying events alone or refusing to discuss them at all, being genuinely heard by another person is one of the most disorienting things that can happen to you. When I finished, she reached across the table and put her hand over mine. "That's a profound betrayal," she said. "And the fact that you're still standing is not nothing. Not pity, not drama, just acknowledgement." I fell a little bit in love with her right there in that booth. 2 months into dating Jade, a cousin I'll call Renee older, lived upstate, someone I'd trusted as a kid reached out through a mutual contact, said she'd heard about everything. Said she just wanted to check in. Just her, over coffee. Scout's honor. I almost said no. But I was lonely in a way I hadn't admitted to myself, and she sounded real. I agreed. I got to the coffee shop 15 minutes early. Scoped every table. She arrived alone, exactly on time. And for 2 hours, she didn't mention forgiveness once. Didn't make excuses for anyone. Just asked how Atlanta was treating me, what I was building at work, whether I was sleeping. When we hugged goodbye, she said, "You deserved better from all of us." I drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. A few weeks later, Renee called again, said her birthday was coming up. Small dinner, close friends, low key. I hesitated. She promised. Just her people, nobody from the family. I mentioned it to Jade on the couch that night. "Do you trust her?" Jade asked. I thought about the coffee shop, the way she hadn't pushed once. "Yeah," I said. "I think I do." Jade looked at me. "Then go. But if it feels wrong, leave." No debate. I should have listened to that last part faster than I did. I walked into the private room at the restaurant downtown. Balloons, a banner, a long table set for my mother, my father, Deshawn, Serena, Camille, my aunt and uncle. And Renee, standing near the door, wearing the face of someone who had convinced herself that a wrong thing was actually right if you loved people enough. My dad stood up immediately. "Son, we need to talk." I didn't sit down, didn't move toward the table. I took a slow breath, looked at Renee. "What is this?" My voice came out low, controlled, but something underneath it had shifted, like bedrock settling. "Please, just sit down," my mom said, moving toward me. "Let's talk like a family. You ambushed me." Again, Deshawn stood up. "Man, it's been almost a year. Come on. Don't." I cut him off with a single word. Then my dad came around the table and put his hand on my shoulder. Firm. Almost aggressive. "Stop running from this. We're your family. You need to stop being so selfish." And something that had been coiled inside me for over a year finally, completely released. I shoved his hand off. Hard. He pushed back. My fist connected with his jaw before the decision ever reached my conscious mind. The room erupted. My mom screamed. Deshawn lunged. Renee gasped. My dad stumbled back, hand to his face, looking at me with something I'd never seen from him before. Genuine shock, like he'd truly never imagined I had this inside me. Maybe neither had I. I turned and walked out of the restaurant. My knuckles were already swelling by the time I reached the parking deck. I drove straight to Jade's apartment, told her everything. She held me while I sat there shaking not from fear, but from the strange, terrible relief of having finally run completely out of things to give. That night I blocked everyone. New round of blocks. Changed my number again. Rewrote my digital life from scratch. And this time there was no grief in it. Just quiet. Real quiet, not the brutal kind. Months passed. Jade and I moved in together. I got promoted to senior project engineer. She expanded her caseload. We adopted a dog from a rescue event, a goofy shepherd mix we named Porter. I started sleeping through the night again. Stopped checking over my shoulder in public. Began to understand what it felt like to simply be okay. Not performing okay. Actually, okay. Through a work friend who stayed loosely in touch with my old world, information filtered back sometimes. I never asked. He'd mention things over drinks. Deshawn lost his bartending job drinking problem, apparently. Serena left him eventually for someone she met at her second job. My parents separated. My dad moved out. I received this information the way you receive news about a country you used to live in. Relevant. Once. Not anymore. I proposed to Jade at Piedmont Park at the exact pavilion where she'd been fighting that table the morning we met. She said yes before I could finish. 4 months later, she came into the bathroom doorway holding a test with 2 pink lines, laughing and crying simultaneously. I held her for a long time. Felt something rearrange itself in my chest. This, I thought, this is what I was being cleared out to make room for. I went to the county courthouse on a Tuesday morning and legally changed my last name to Jade's family name, Whitfield. Paid the fee. Filled out the paperwork. Stood in front of a judge and walked out Marcus Whitfield. No more carrying the name of people who had used my forgiveness as currency. My son would carry a name built on something real. We got married in a small ceremony at a botanical garden outside the city, 40 people, all of whom had actually chosen to be there. Jade walked down the aisle in a cream dress with our son on her hip. He was 4 months old by then, wide-eyed and completely unimpressed by the occasion, which made everybody laugh. I stood at that altar in a gray suit and watched them come toward me and felt nothing complicated at all. Just clarity. Just, this is it. Our son's name is Callum Whitfield. He has Jade's cheekbones and my stubbornness. When the nurse handed him to me for the first time in that delivery room, he opened his eyes barely, a slow, unfocusing squint, and I felt something I'd never felt before. Not love the way I'd known it. Something older. More fundamental. The kind of thing that makes you understand finally what you've been building toward all along. Now it's a Sunday morning. Jade's inside making breakfast. I can hear her talking to Callum in that way she has. Like everything he says back in his half-formed toddler language is the most interesting thing she's ever heard. Porter is asleep across my feet. The sun is coming up over the neighborhood. I have a mug of coffee and know where I need to be. My name is on the mailbox. Whitfield. I put it there myself. I think about the man I was at 30. The one who genuinely believed that if you were loyal enough, honest enough, decent enough, the people who loved you would meet you there. I know better now. Not as a cynical thing, as a clear thing. Family is not a biological fact. It's a daily practice. It's who shows up. Who respects your boundaries without being asked twice. Who doesn't need you to perform your pain in a way that's convenient for them before they acknowledge it's real. I don't regret any of it. Not ending the engagement, not leaving the city, not the punch, though I won't pretend that moment was my finest. Not blocking every single one of them, not changing my name, not building a life they have no part of. Every one of those choices brought me here, to this porch, to this morning, to this life that is genuinely mine. People ask sometimes coworkers who hear pieces of the story, Jade's friends who can't quite wrap their heads around it, don't you think you'll reconcile someday? I understand why they ask. The cultural script says family wounds heal with enough time. I'm not bitter. I don't lie awake consumed by it. I just genuinely don't want them in my life. Not because of what they did, but because of what they revealed about how they'd always see me. And I refuse, respectfully and permanently, to be seen that way. From inside I hear it, da-da. Like a question, like an answer. I finish my coffee, stand up, head inside. I want to ask you something before I go, and I mean this sincerely. Where are you watching from right now? What time is it where you are? And have you ever had to walk away from people who should have had your back, people who chose their own comfort over your dignity? Drop your answer in the comments. Type 1 if you think Marcus did the right thing completely. Type 2 if you understand him but think he went too far somewhere. Type 3 if you'd have handled it differently and want to say how. I read every single one of these, and I mean that. This story reminded me that the bravest thing you can do is stop trying to earn love from people who've already decided their peace matters more than your pain. If you've been holding on to something like that, some relationship, some family tie, some obligation that's been slowly hollowing you out, maybe the question worth sitting with tonight is this: what am I protecting, and is it still worth the wait? If this story landed for you, if it stayed with you past the first minute, please consider subscribing. We tell stories here that deserve to be heard. Stories about what it actually costs, to be honest, to walk away, to start over. New videos every week. We'd love to have you with us. This is a fictional story inspired by real emotional experiences, fully rewritten and reimagined in Atlanta, Georgia, to create original content. Any resemblance to real people, living or deceased, or actual events is entirely coincidental.